Welcome back to the Deep Dive, listener. Ready to dig into some serious military strategy.
Always. And today's going to be a good one. We're tackling Clausewitz.
The one and only. Specifically, his take on the key to the country. And listener, we know you're out there serving, so this one's for you. It's a concept that's been debated, misunderstood, and even misused throughout military history.
Oh, absolutely. Clausewitz himself even says how everyone seems to want this, like magical shortcut to victory, right? Find that one spot, that key to the country, and boom, you've won the war.
Right, like it's some kind of hidden treasure chest on the map or something. But as we'll see, Clausewitz was way too sharp to fall for that kind of simplistic thinking.
Yeah, he saw right through that. He dedicated a whole chapter On War to debunking this myth.
So he starts off by presenting these two common ways people have historically viewed the key to the country, like either capturing the most vulnerable point in your enemy's defenses or seizing their most heavily fortified stronghold. What's the problem with that kind of thinking?
Well, imagine for a second, you're a general back in the 18th century. Everyone's obsessed with controlling, say, the source of the Danube River. They think whoever holds this spring, controls the fate of empires. Clausewitz comes in and says, hold on a minute, you're missing the bigger picture here. Look at Napoleon. He didn't conquer Europe by camping out at a river source.
He was a little more active than that.
Right. He did it by outmaneuvering his enemies, cutting off their supply lines, and understanding the real key to victory, their vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Okay, so he's pushing back against this idea that the map itself will win you the war. It's not enough to just control the highest mountain pass or the most fortified city.
Exactly. He's rejecting this idea of what we call geographical determinism, this notion that geography alone dictates victory. He uses this great analogy. Imagine there's a mountain somewhere, right? And from it, every major river in Germany originates.
Sounds pretty strategically important.
Right. Total control of the water supply, the high ground, the whole 9 yards. But Clausewitz would say, sure, it might make for a great trigonometric point on a map, but strategically, it might be practically useless.
Interesting.
He uses it to really drive home the point that warfare, even back then, was far too complex to be reduced to just controlling some fixed point on the map.
It's about more than just geography.
Way more. And this is where his thinking gets really interesting, because he actually argued that becoming fixated on holding specific locations, like fortresses or entrenched camps, could make your forces more vulnerable in the long run.
Really? That's so counterintuitive.
It is, isn't it? But think about it. If all your resources are tied up in defending a fixed position, you lose flexibility, the ability to adapt and react to the enemy's movements.
So it's like you're predictable.
Exactly. Clausewitz wanted military leaders to think beyond those static defenses, to see the bigger picture.
He really wanted them to break free from those outdated playbooks, didn't he?
He did. And for him, that meant understanding that the true key to the country often lies not in a fixed location on a map.
But in something else.
Yes, but something far more dynamic and elusive, the enemy's army itself.
So instead of, like, castles or mountain passes, Clausewitz wants us to target the enemy's army itself.
Yeah, exactly.
But what does that even mean? Like, how do you even begin to target an entire army?
It's about, well, think of it like a chess game, right?
Okay.
Each piece on the board, those are like parts of their army.
Makes sense.
You wouldn't just focus on capturing one pawn, right?
No, of course not.
You'd be thinking several moves ahead, looking for ways to disrupt their whole game.
Anticipating their moves.
Exactly. And then you can exploit those weaknesses, right?
So we need to see the bigger picture, their logistics, communication lines, their whole strategy.
You got it. It's about finding those vulnerabilities, which are always changing, by the way.
Constantly shifting.
Right. And that's what makes it so challenging.
But also kind of exciting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what strategy is all about.
Absolutely. And this is where Clausewitz's idea of the key comes in.
Okay, so how does that fit in?
He argued that by holding the key to a country, you gain two main advantages.
Two. Okay, what's the first one?
First, you get superior tactical positioning, meaning you can outmaneuver your enemy.
Control the battlefield.
Exactly. You dictate the terms of engagement. You're calling the shots.
Okay, I can see how that would be a major game changer. What's the second advantage?
So the second advantage is being able to disrupt the enemy's lines of communication and supply.
Basically cut off their lifeline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you can isolate their forces, prevent them from getting reinforcements or supplies.
They're basically done for.
Pretty much. They're crippled, can't wage war effectively.
Makes sense.
It's all about that strategic advantage, you know?
Yeah. Definitely. So how about a concrete example? Can
Yeah.
you show us how these ideas might have actually played out, say, on a 19th century battlefield?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Napoleon's campaigns. He wasn't hung up on capturing specific cities or fortresses. He was laser focused on those two advantages.
Disrupting their ability to even make war.
Exactly. And he did it by targeting the enemy's army as a whole, not just pieces of it.
So he was constantly maneuvering, flanking his enemies, cutting off their supply lines, kind of putting those two advantages into action.
Precisely. A perfect example is the Battle of Ulm in 1805. Napoleon's forces, they completely encircled the Austrian army, forced their surrender without even a major battle.
Wow. That's incredible.
It really shows you the power of understanding the bigger picture,
It's
right?
like something out of a textbook.
Right.
But this wasn't just some theory for Clausewitz, was it? He was talking about the brutal realities of war
Exactly.
and giving those military leaders real tools they could actually use.
He wanted them to be prepared.
And here's the thing that blows my mind. Clausewitz was writing way back in the 19th century,
Yeah.
but his ideas, they're more relevant now than ever.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's so amazing about his work.
It's wild how that happens, right? We think we've moved on, but those core principles, they stick around.
They really do. Think about it. Today's militaries, they move with incredible speed and precision. Air power, drones, cyber warfare, it's a whole new world out there.
Light years from what Clausewitz was dealing with.
Right. But even with all those advancements, those principles he outlined, they're still the foundation for success.
So how do we take those ideas into the 21st century? If the battle space, if it's less about holding specific points and more about information, resources, global influence, does that key to the country idea, does that even still apply?
That's the million-dollar question. It's like the battlefield itself has become more fluid, more spread out.
Definitely not fighting the same wars Clausewitz was writing about.
Not at all.
But those two advantages, that superior tactical positioning, disrupting supply lines, those still matter.
More than ever.
Really?
Think about it. It's like the chessboard itself has changed, you know?
The pieces have gotten a serious upgrade.
Yeah. But that core goal, to outmaneuver and outstrategize your opponent, that's still the same.
You've still got to be thinking a few steps ahead.
Exactly. And that's where Clausewitz's focus on understanding the enemy's army, like their capabilities, weaknesses, their whole potential for making war, that's more important than ever in the 21st century.
So the key isn't about some spot on a map anymore. It's about their systems, their alliances, even their decision-making.
Finding those vulnerabilities and exploiting them.
Recognizing those moments of weakness, no matter how small.
And capitalizing on them. Clausewitz, he wanted those military leaders to be students of strategy, not just battlefield tacticians.
It's a whole different level of thinking.
Right. It's not enough to win a single battle. You need to win the war. And that takes a deep understanding of how everything connects: the politics, economics, the human element.
See, that's what's so fascinating about Clausewitz to me. He's not saying, here's the secret recipe for victory guaranteed. If anything, he's saying the opposite.
Totally. He's pushing back against those easy answers, those simplistic solutions, and basically saying, look, warfare, it's messy, it's complex, there's no magic formula.
And that's why his work is still relevant today.
Right. Absolutely. He's urging us to think critically, to challenge what we think we know, and to be ready to adapt. Because the world's not static, and neither is warfare.
You can't just rely on those old playbooks anymore.
No way. He knew that if you think you've mastered warfare, you're already on the path to defeat.
It's about staying sharp, staying adaptable.
Exactly. And that's why he was so insistent on understanding that the key to the country, whatever form it takes, it's rarely obvious. It's about flexibility, being willing to adjust on the fly.
So for you, listener, as you're navigating the complexities of modern warfare, remember what Clausewitz taught us about the key. It's not about holding a certain position. It's about understanding your enemy and the whole strategic landscape, which is always changing.
It's about being more adaptable, thinking more strategically, and seeing those opportunities that others miss. That's Clausewitz in action.
Not just memorizing his words, but actually putting those ideas to work.
Yes. Recognizing that war doesn't have easy answers. It's about creating opportunities.
And being ready to seize them. I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Definitely.
It's been amazing diving deep into Clausewitz's Key to the Country with you today. A deceptively simple idea with so much complexity underneath.
It's a concept that's still making people think, which is incredible considering how long ago he wrote this stuff. But it reminds us that victory comes from adaptability, strategic thinking, and truly understanding the enemy.
And listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a fresh perspective on Clausewitz and how those ideas can be applied in today's world.
It's about asking those tough questions, keep digging for those deeper insights, and never stop learning about warfare.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.